What's up, everybody? We are so thankful that you are connected in a small group, and we're actually starting a brand new series talking about the kingdom. And what we're going to do is we're going to take some time over the next few weeks of small group to really delve in deep into this great sermon that Jesus preached, the Sermon on the Mount. This was the first sermon that Jesus kind of really came and spoke into the lives of people. And what's so amazing about it is how practical it is, how applicable it is to our everyday life. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a few minutes and really talk about the first part of that sermon today that we call the Beatitudes. The Beatitudes were this series of blessings that Jesus gave out, and it was just kind of ushering in the beginning of his ministry. Now, Jesus, when he's talking about these Beatitudes, these blessings, they're way different from what the world might expect or experience. Jesus got people's attention right away when he started talking about these type of blessings for people. It's kind of like the shirt I'm wearing right now. I'm sure when you saw it, that got your attention right away. Nice and big and bright and bold, and it stood out. And that's what Jesus does when he starts pronouncing these blessings in the Beatitudes. So let's check them out right now. Matthew chapter 5, starting in verse 3, Jesus says this to the crowds of people. God blesses those who are poor and realize their need for Him, for the kingdom of heaven is theirs. Okay, God blesses those who are poor. We like to think in America especially, well, God blesses people who are rich, right? That's the way they got rich. God blessed them. But it says God blesses people who are poor, who realize their need for Him. You see, when people are poor, they realize they need something. They need help. People who are poor in spirit, people realize they need God. God says, man, I bless those people because they realize they don't have all they need, but they can come and get it from me. In verse 4, Jesus goes on to say, God blesses those who mourn, for they will be comforted. In other words, God blesses that person at your small group that cries every single week. You know who I'm talking about because you're probably a little teary-eyed right now, right? No, I'm just kind of playing. But really, in essence, something that God loves is when we're actually open and real and honest enough to show that we're mourning, that we're sad, or we're going through something. And that's why I'm so glad you're connected to a small group. In a small group, when you mourn, others around you can comfort you. And in the same way, when others mourn, God may use you to comfort others. God blesses those who mourn, for they will be comforted. Verse 5 says this, God blesses those who are humble, for they will inherit the whole earth. There's a football player who used to play for a few different teams, but his name was Terrell Owens. And Terrell Owens used to say, I love me some me, all right? He was all about himself. That's not humility. That's the opposite of humility. That's pride. And where you find pride, you'll find a divide because God doesn't partner with pride. So here's the deal. God blesses those who are humble. That's a great attribute He wants us and desires for us inside of our lives. Verse 6 says this, God blesses those who hunger and thirst for justice, for they will be satisfied. Those who have a desire to see things done morally right, to be in a right relationship with God, those people will be satisfied. Those who hunger and thirst for it. When you hunger and thirst for something, you just can't wait to be satisfied. When you're thirsty for water because you're out in 120 degrees because we live in Arizona. Why do we live in Arizona? I don't know why. It must be for the winters, but you know what I mean. When you are just hot and your mouth is dry, you thirst for water. And in the same way, Jesus says, those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, they will be satisfied. Hunger and thirst for justice, righteousness, they will be satisfied. Verse 7 says this, God blesses those who are merciful, for they will be shown mercy. If you will show mercy to others, God will bless you by having others show mercy to you. God blesses those who are merciful. Verse 8, God blesses those whose hearts are pure, for they will see God. This is such a powerful one right here. And I want you to think about it. People who are pure, He makes the link to say they will see God. I want you to know that purity, that leads to clarity. Have you ever been driving your vehicle before? Maybe it's raining outside, and all of a sudden you use your windshield wipers to wipe the rain off. That purity leads to clarity. All of a sudden you can see better out that windshield. And in the same way, when we live lives of purity, it leads to clarity. We can see God better. And this is why we would challenge people. People who have sex with someone before getting married to them. You see, once you begin to do that, you're no longer living in purity. it clouds your judgment about that person. And you begin to think this person is, the right person for you or whatever it might be because your judgment is clouded. If we could challenge you and remind you, purity, if you'll be pure in all ways in your life, that'll lead to clarity. You'll have better judgment. You'll see God better and see His will for your life in situations. Verse 9, this blessing Jesus next says is, God blesses those who work for peace, for they will be called the children of God. God desires people to be peacemakers, not peace takers. When you walk into a room, are you someone that brings the level down because it's nice and peaceful now? Or when you walk into a room, do things escalate because people know you're coming in and you're going to take the peace right out of the place? God blesses those who are peacemakers. These last verses I'm going to put together, verses 10 through 12. God blesses those who are persecuted for doing right, for the kingdom of heaven is theirs. God blesses you when people mock you and persecute you and lie about you and say all sorts of evil things about you, against you, because you are my followers. Be happy about it. Be very glad, for a great reward awaits you. And remember, the ancient prophets were persecuted in the same way. God even blesses you when other people do you dirty. When other people treat you wrong and they persecute you because you're living your life right for God, God says, don't worry about that. I've got a blessing coming for you. I got an eternal blessing coming for you. I'm going to reward you in eternity because you're living your life right for me. God blesses you when you do things in accordance to His will. And these are the types of people that God blesses. So I hope as you got a chance to kind of hear some of these blessings that Jesus pronounced on the people, you'd really be able to identify what are the areas that you're really strong in and what are the areas where you maybe need some work. Have a good conversation with your small group about those things. Help them point out maybe some of your weaknesses and help them point out some of your strengths so that way you can be putting yourself into a position of being the kind of person that God blesses. God bless you and enjoy your small group today.